Okay, so picture this. How exactly does a legacy automaker survive the brutal EV price wars, insane global tariffs, and a regulatory landscape that's literally shifting beneath their feet? Well, welcome to a fascinating look at the chaotic auto market of 2026. We are looking at a highly volatile ecosystem right now, where just one wrong bet can cost a company billions, and traditional car manufacturers are fighting tooth and nail to keep their footing against some super agile, highly innovative competitors. But, amidst all this chaos, there's one company attempting a really fascinating corporate survival strategy. Today, we're unpacking BMW's 2026 strategy. See, they aren't just trying to weather the storm here. They are structurally organizing themselves to adapt, shift, and actually thrive on this instability. It's honestly a masterclass in corporate adaptability. Okay, let's look at the roadmap for this explainer. We're going to cover building an anti-fragile automaker, navigating global trade headwinds, the great China pivot, the dawn of new class, and finally, the financial road ahead. Let's get into it. All right, Section 1, building an anti-fragile automaker. So this core corporate mindset is driving every single massive decision at BMW right now, coming straight from the very top. BMW's CEO, Oliver Zipse, uses a really specific word to describe their whole approach, anti-fragile. And this doesn't just mean being resilient or, merely surviving geopolitical shocks. Being anti-fragile means actively profiting from a highly volatile world. It's all about assuming that massive fluctuations, whether we're talking energy crises, tariff wars, or just wild swings in consumer tastes, are an absolute given. The goal here is to train the corporate muscle of maximum flexibility, to instantly absorb and then adapt to those shocks. Now, what's really interesting here is how these three pillars allow BMW to shift margins and react to fluctuating market demands, like instantly. First up is global presence. Basically, if the market suddenly shrinks in China, they aim to overcompensate with growth in Europe or the US. Second is technology neutrality. They are definitely not going all in on one single drivetrain. By keeping their options wide open across both combustion and electric, they can pivot fast when one country hits the gas on EV adoption while another, hits the brakes. And third, full segment offerings. From a Mini to a 7 Series, Rolls-Royce, or Alpina, they've got a footprint everywhere. This intense flexibility, that's their primary defense mechanism. Moving right along to Section 2, navigating global trade headwinds. Because wow, these headwinds in 2026 are practically gale force. The whole automotive industry is getting squeezed right now between two massive external pressures. On one side, you've got the European Union's CO2 regulations. The EU is pushing for a pretty aggressive 90% CO2 reduction. But as BMW's leadership points out, the fine print there actually restricts technology openness and completely ignores the value of European export content, which, naturally, heavily penalizes export-heavy German automakers. And then on the other side, you have global tariffs. Trade agreements between the US, the EU, and other nations are just incredibly uncertain right now, creating this super unpredictable ecosystem for pricing and supply chains. BMW really isn't taking a political side here at all. They're simply trying to navigate a genuinely intense, complex mathematical reality. And to put a really concrete financial stake on that reality, check out this number, 1.25%. That is the EBIT margin burden, a full 1.25% of their operating profit that BMW's leadership has actively baked into their 2026 financial guidance purely to account for these global tariff headwinds. They're mathematically assuming they're going to take a hit, basically hoping for the best but actively budgeting for the friction. Which brings us to Section 3, the Great China Pivot. If you want to truly understand the pressure legacy automakers are under, you've got to look at the world's most saturated car market. In the first quarter of 2026, the data showed BMW had just a 6.6% electrification rate in China. Now, to put that into perspective, the broader market average for EV penetration in China is a staggering 54.1%. So yeah, BMW was lagging behind pretty significantly. Their outgoing models were built on a shared architecture with internal combustion engines, which locals often criticized as converted ICE designs, and they simply weren't capturing the high-tech demands of the modern Chinese consumer. So the crucial point here is this dramatic reset. In July 2026, BMW made the bold, honestly kind of shocking decision to halt production of all their domestic pure electric models in China, including the i3, i5, and iX1. Now, they stated very clearly this is not them withdrawing from the EV market. Actually, scratch that, it's more like a strategic suspension to clear the runway, concentrate their capacity, and completely prep their factories for a whole new generation of vehicles. All right, Section 4, Dawn of New Class. Now, this right here is the highly anticipated technological and structural solution to BMW's product line challenges. Take a look at the Neue Class exterior. This represents a ground-up, purely electric architecture. This is no longer some converted internal combustion platform. This is a dedicated, highly advanced EV structure that is literally carrying the weight of BMW's future. The progressive clarity and this entirely new design language reflect a massive leap forward, aimed squarely at competing with the most innovative EV players on the planet. And this brilliantly illustrates what the industry is calling the software-defined vehicle, or SDV. On the right, you can see the panoramic iDrive digital interior. It's really not just a screen. It's a completely immersive user experience, driven by 4 high-performance computers that BMW playfully calls the superbrains. In markets like China, this is absolutely crucial. The vehicle features navigation and assistance systems co-developed with local tech giants like Momenta and Huawei, seamlessly merging the virtual and real worlds to meet the demands of these digital-first consumers. But beneath that digital interior is the new Gen 6 battery power. And guys, the specs here are a massive leap. We're looking at a full 800-volt system, a 108 kilowatt-hour cylindrical battery, and a range exceeding 900 kilometers on the CLT cycle. That's the Chinese testing standard. Perhaps most impressively, though, you can add roughly 400 kilometers of range in just a 10-minute charge. That's a real game changer. And from a business perspective, this Gen 6 eDrive system actually comes with a 40 to 50% cost reduction. So significantly better performance with drastically lower production costs. Finally, let's wrap up with Section 5, the financial road ahead. Okay, so all of this cutting-edge technology and anti-fragile philosophy has to actually translate into financial resilience, right? Let's move to the sales floor and see how this builds a stable future. BMW is rolling out something they call the new retail, or TNR. It's essentially a massive shift to a direct sales model. Step 1, end traditional haggling. Step 2, centralize AI-driven pricing. So instead of consumers fighting for different prices at different independent dealers, AI algorithms just set a stable, centralized price both online and offline. And step 3, optimize stock management centrally, which cuts down on that costly overstocking that traditionally creates a ton of price pressure. It's a strategy completely designed to protect the brand's premium transaction prices while giving modern consumers the transparent, digital-first buying experience they actually prefer. So, what does the balance sheet actually look like after all this? Well, the 2026 outlook projects an auto EBIT margin in the corridor of 4 to 6%. Group EBIT is expected to see a moderate 10 to 15% decline compared to an incredibly strong previous year, which is heavily influenced by the massive upfront investments in depreciations tied to launching the Neue Klasse. But to stay resilient, BMW is heavily focused on capital efficiency right now, actively reducing capital expenditures, R&D overhead, and fixed costs. They are basically controlling what they can control, maintaining their industry-leading credit ratings and committing to a really solid 30 to 40% shareholder return framework. So we've seen the brutal headwinds, the radical strategic pivots, and the billion-dollar technological bets. BMW is literally testing the very limits of corporate flexibility. So I'll leave you with this provocative thought. In an era defined by total global chaos, sudden regulatory shifts, and absolutely fierce technological price wars, will this anti-fragile strategy be enough to conquer the rest of the 2020s? Or will the sheer speed of change eventually outpace even the most flexible legacy automaker? Thank you so much for diving into this explainer and learning with me today. Keep asking those great questions, and I'll catch you next time.